I knew the moment Jared shut the blinds in the executive corner office. It was not going to be a routine quarterly review. The air inside the glass room smelled faintly of lemon-scented furniture polish, and whatever expensive cologne 31-year-old middle managers buy when they think corporate authority comes in a bottle. Jared leaned back in his leather chair, adjusting the gold cufflinks he had received after his latest promotion to Vice President of Workforce Optimization. He looked at me with the practiced, detached condescension of a man who viewed human beings as numerical entries on a spreadsheet. Then he said it. Smoothly, without a single microsecond of hesitation, as if he were ordering a second cup of espresso during lunch. He told me that my pension was an acceptable loss. I did not flinch, I did not blink, nor did I raise my voice. I simply sat there, 49 years old, holding my silver Parker pen, staring directly into his eyes the way a seasoned investigator stares at a suspect who has just walked straight into a trap. Jared smiled, clearly convinced he had won an important victory. In his mind, eliminating a compliance officer who had given 24 faithful years to Omnipulse Dynamics was just another feather in his executive cap. He assumed that handing me a cardboard box, along with a standard severance folder, would make me vanish into quiet retirement without raising a fuss. He thought he was clearing away dead weight to make the balance sheet look pristine for the board. I did not scream. I did not throw a tantrum or demand to speak with the chief executive officer. I quietly picked up my silver pen, slid my corporate security access badge across the polished mahogany table, and picked up the brown cardboard box containing 24 years of my professional life. I walked out of that glass office with measured, steady steps. I walked past the young receptionist who suddenly found her computer screen fascinating to avoid eye contact. I walked past the junior legal associate who had asked me for advice on intellectual property filings just 3 weeks earlier. I walked past the glowing digital appreciation monitor in the main lobby that was looping a corporate graphic of colorful balloons above the words, thanking employees for their dedication. I stepped out into the bright afternoon sunlight, breathing in the fresh air, feeling a cold, razor-sharp clarity settle over my mind. Jared Cole was young, ambitious, and completely blinded by his own rapid rise through the corporate ranks. He believed that executive titles and social media endorsements carried more weight than institutional memory. What he did not know, and what no one in that glass tower bothered to check, was that back in the year 2004, during a severe Series C liquidity crunch that almost wiped out Omnipulse Dynamics, I had negotiated a very specific agreement. At that time, the company lacked the cash reserves to fund executive pension match guarantees. To keep key operational staff from jumping ship to competitors, the board offered deferred compensation agreements. But I did not settle for a mere verbal promise or an unsecured IOU. I had drafted a binding covenant. It was not a hidden footnote or a vague clause. It was a senior debt covenant framed under Uniform Commercial Code Article 9. It explicitly stipulated that if Omnipulse Dynamics ever defaulted on its retirement obligations to me, or terminated my employment without fully satisfying my pension fund valuation, my private retirement trust would instantly convert into a senior secured creditor. And what secured that obligation? It was not office furniture or spare server racks. It was the company's 18 core foundational patents. Those 18 patents represented the proprietary artificial intelligence diagnostic schema, the core algorithmic sorting trees, and the patented user interface that powered every single software suite Omnipulse sold to major hospital networks across North America. Over the past 2 decades, I had watched young software engineers build entire product ecosystems on top of those 18 patents as if they belonged to the open sky. But they did not belong to the sky. They were legal collateral. 22 years ago, in a dusty conference room that smelled of stale coffee and dry erase markers, I had made sure my signature was inked into the debt structure like an invisible tripwire waiting to be touched. As soon as I arrived at my suburban home, I took off my jacket, walked past the living room, and opened the heavy wooden door to my garage. I walked past stacked plastic bins, labeled holiday decorations and old lawn tools, reaching behind the main electrical breaker panel to pull out a heavy fireproof iron lockbox. The mechanical combination was still set to the date of my daughter's middle school graduation. The heavy hinges creaked as I opened the lid. Inside, tucked neatly between expired passports and old family birth certificates, lay the original covenant. The paper had yellowed slightly around the edges over the past 22 years, but the dark blue ink of the corporate seal remained crisp and legible. I ran my fingertips over the raised seal, reading the opening line. Whereas the employee Calvin Bradley and the employer OmniPulse Dynamics Incorporated do hereby enter into a binding senior security agreement. I smiled softly to myself. They had treated me as a clerical relic, an obsolete line item, an acceptable loss, but relics are forged in furnace heat, and some covenants carry the weight of an avalanche. I placed the yellowed document into a fresh plastic sleeve, slid it inside my leather briefcase, and pulled out my phone. I dialed a number I had not called in 7 years. Attorney Wade Miller picked up on the third ring. Wade was not a corporate defense lawyer who spent his days drafting polite, stern letters. He was a seasoned asset recovery specialist, a legal sledgehammer whom major institutional creditors called when multi-million-dollar corporations tried to hide assets behind shell entities. "Wade," I said calmly, "I have a senior debt covenant signed in 2004, backed by 18 foundational patents under Article 9. My employer just breached the agreement." There was a brief pause on the line, followed by the slow, distinct sound of Wade shifting in his leather chair. "Calvin," Wade said softly, "tell me you are holding the original notarized assignment paperwork." "I have the original sealed document right in front of me," I replied. Wade chuckled, a low rumble of genuine professional appreciation. "Bring it to my office immediately," he said. "If the documentation is intact, we are not going to file a polite lawsuit. We are going to foreclose on their entire infrastructure." 45 minutes later, I was sitting in Wade Miller's top-floor office overlooking the downtown skyline. Wade had his sleeves rolled up, peering through a thick magnifying loupe as he examined the raised corporate seal and the notarized signatures on my 2004 covenant. He spent 20 minutes referencing the document with federal patent assignment registries, Delaware corporate statutes, and the Uniform Commercial Code Index. Finally, he pushed his glasses up his nose, leaned back in his leather armchair, and let out a long, low whistle. "Calvin," Wade said, shaking his head in disbelief, "this is not just valid, it is an absolute masterpiece of contractual drafting. You did not just secure a secondary claim. You established a first-priority senior security interest under Uniform Commercial Code Article 9. Cross-collateralized directly with title assignments under Title 35 of the United States Code. Section 261. What does that mean in practical terms for Jared Cole and the board?" I asked, taking a slow sip of black coffee. "It means," Wade explained, pointing his pen at the document, "that the moment OmniPulse Dynamics repudiated your pension fund by declaring it an acceptable loss, they committed an uncured event of default under Paragraph 4. Because your claim is senior and secured by the underlying intellectual property itself, you do not have to wait in line with unsecured creditors or negotiate in bankruptcy court. You have the immediate legal right to foreclose on the collateral. You own the primary equitable mortgage on all 18 foundational patents." Just as Wade finished speaking, my phone chimed with a news alert notification. I pulled it out of my pocket and saw a major headline from a national financial news network. OmniPulse Dynamics announces landmark $4 billion merger with European health tech titan Nordic Health AGI. Handed the phone to Wade. He read the breaking news release, his eyes scanning the corporate quotes from OmniPulse's chief executive officer and Jared Cole. The press release proudly declared that the $4 billion merger was projected to deliver an immediate 45% valuation uplift for shareholders. The entire rationale for the deal rested upon OmniPulse's exclusive, unencumbered ownership of its proprietary artificial intelligence diagnostic engine. The very engine built entirely upon my 18 collateralized patents. Wade laughed out loud, a sound sharp enough to cut through the quiet office. "They just pledged collateral they do not cleanly own to an international conglomerate," Wade said, shaking his head. "Look at their Securities and Exchange Commission filing on Form S-4. They explicitly represented to federal regulators and European investors that their core patent portfolio was free and clear of all liens, encumbrances, and third-party security interests. I remembered seeing a social media post earlier that morning from Justin Briggs, the 28-year-old junior analyst, hired to replace my compliance oversight duties. Justin had posted a photograph of himself wearing a tailored suit, holding a champagne glass at the pre-merger celebration, captioned, "Proud to have managed the IP audit, verifying our unencumbered tech portfolio for this $4 billion milestone." They committed federal securities fraud under Rule 10b-5, I observed quietly. They omitted a material encumbrance because no one under the age of 40 bothered to audit the physical lockbox archives from 2004. Precisely, Wade replied, his eyes gleaming with intense legal focus. They assumed that because 22 years had passed, any old liabilities had expired or disappeared into digital dust. They built a $4 billion skyscraper on top of a foundation that you hold the legal deed for this asset. So what is our next move? I asked. Wade pulled out a fresh legal notepad and picked up a fountain pen. First, we issue a formal notice of secured creditor action and intent to foreclose on collateral assets. We will attach certified copies of the covenant, the Uniform Commercial Code filing statements, and the patent registration schedules. We will give them a strict cure window of exactly 7 business days to fully reinstate your pension fund trust with complete back interest and statutory penalties. And if they ignore the notice or try to brush it off as a bluff, then, Wade said, his voice dropping to a calm, decisive whisper, on the morning of the 8th day we walk into federal district court, obtain an expedited asset repossession warrant, and send federal marshals along with court-appointed technical specialists directly into their headquarters to physically seize every server, code repository, and master encryption key associated with those 18 patents. I looked out the window at the distant glass tower of Omnipulse Dynamics, shining in the afternoon sun. For 24 years I had worked long hours ensuring that every contract was compliant, every regulatory risk disclosed, and every corporate liability accounted for with extreme care. I had been rewarded with condescension, a cardboard box, and an arrogant assertion that my life's work was an acceptable loss. "Let us send the notice, Wade," I said quietly. "Let us see if Jared Cole still thinks my pension is acceptable loss when the foundation beneath his feet begins to crumble." At exactly 2 minutes past 9 on Tuesday morning, Wade Miller's office dispatched the formal legal notice via certified electronic delivery and courier service. The document was titled, "Notice of Senior Secured Creditor Action and Impending Foreclosure on Intellectual Property Collateral." It was addressed directly to the General Counsel of Omnipulse Dynamics, with copies sent to the Chief Executive Officer, the Board of Directors, and the Lead Acquisition Counsel for Nordic Health AG. The notice was 4 pages long, written with surgical legal precision. It detailed the exact history of the 2004 covenant, cited Uniform Commercial Code, Article 9, referenced Title 35 of the United States Code, and included clear color copies of the notarized signatures and raised corporate seals. It explicitly stated that Omnipulse Dynamics had 7 business days to cure the pension default by depositing $3,800,000 into an independent escrow account, failing which full collateral repossession proceedings would commence immediately. However, when the electronic notice arrived at Omnipulse headquarters, it did not land on the desk of an experienced senior partner. Instead, it was routed to the inbox of Chloe Davis, a 24-year-old junior legal assistant who had been hired 2 months earlier. Chloe was overwhelmed with hundreds of routine emails regarding merger press releases, vendor contracts, and internal compliance surveys. When Chloe opened the email and saw the words pension claim, foreclosure notice, and senior creditor, she glanced at the sender's address. Seeing that it came from a private law firm rather than a recognized state regulatory agency, she assumed it was merely another nuisance demand letter from a disgruntled former employee, operating under internal instructions to filter out low-priority employment disputes during the pre-merger crunch. Chloe marked the file as pending administrative review and filed it into a low-priority folder. For 3 days, the 7-day cure clock ticked away in complete silence. Omnipulse executives spent those 72 hours holding victory galas, giving interviews to financial journalists, and finalizing executive bonus allocations tied to the upcoming $4 billion merger completion. Jared Cole posted another update on his corporate network, posing in front of a giant digital sign that read, "Innovating without limits." It was not until late Friday afternoon on the fourth business day of the cure window that Chloe Davis mentioned the document during a casual catch-up with senior corporate counsel Horace Danforth. "Oh, Horace," Chloe said, holding a stack of papers. "A law firm sent over some notice claiming they hold a senior security lien on our core AI diagnostic patents from 2004. I filed it under old pension inquiries." Horace Danforth, a 58-year-old corporate attorney who had been with the firm for 15 years, froze in his tracks. He turned slowly, his face draining of color. "What did you just say?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Chloe handed him the printed notice. Horace scanned the first paragraph, saw the name Calvin Bradley, and read the reference to Uniform Commercial Code Article 9 and the 18 core patents. His hands began to tremble so violently that the paper rattled in the quiet hallway. "Get the general counsel into the main boardroom right now," Horace shouted, shattering the afternoon calm of the executive floor. "Call outside defense counsel. Get Jared Cole in here immediately." Within 20 minutes, 12 senior executives, 5 board members, and 4 partners from the company's external defense firm were crammed into the glass boardroom. The atmosphere was thick with sudden, unadulterated panic. Outside defense counsel, a senior litigator named Nolan Vance, sat at the head of the table, holding a freshly verified copy of my original 2004 filing from the state records office. "Is this document real?" demanded the chief executive officer, slamming his fist onto the table. "Can a former compliance officer actually stop a $4 billion international merger over an old pension clause?" Nolan Vance looked around the room, his expression grave. "Not only is it real," Vance said slowly, "but it is completely airtight. Under Delaware corporate law and Uniform Commercial Code Article 9, Calvin Bradley holds a perfected, first-priority senior security interest in all 18 foundational patents listed in Exhibit A. His lien sits ahead of our commercial banks, ahead of our bondholders, and ahead of Nordic Health. Jared Cole stood up, his face flushed red with anger. "This is absurd," Jared yelled. "We fired him 4 days ago. We gave him a standard severance package. He cannot just claim ownership of our core technology because of some ancient piece of paper from 22 years ago. We will file an emergency injunction and blow his claim out of the water." "Sit down, Jared," Vance snapped coldly. "You do not understand how commercial debt law works. He is not filing a wrongful termination lawsuit where we can drag out discovery for 3 years. He is exercising a statutory right as a senior secured creditor following an explicit event of default. If this cure window expires in 3 business days without full payment, he does not even have to negotiate with us. He can legally seize title to the algorithms that power our entire enterprise." The room fell into a stunned, suffocating silence. The executives looked at each other in sheer horror as the reality of their position sank deep into their minds. By 6 o'clock on Monday evening, with only 48 hours remaining before the expiration of the 7-day cure window, the executive floor at Omnipulse Dynamics had descended into absolute chaos. Internal audit teams were frantically digging through 24 years of historical compliance archives, trying to find any loophole, any missing signature, or any procedural error that could invalidate my 2004 covenant. They found nothing. Instead, they discovered a paper trail of meticulous perfection. Every compliance memo I had ever authored over my 24-year tenure was cross-referenced, numbered, and backed by statutory authority. They realized that while they had been spending millions on marketing campaigns and executive bonuses, I had been quietly ensuring that every single legal safeguard was built to withstand an atomic blast. At 6:15 p.m., my personal phone began to ring. I looked at the caller ID and saw the main corporate line for Omnipulse Dynamics. I let it ring 4 times before answering calmly. "Calvin Bradley speaking," I said into the receiver. "Calvin!" came the voice of Horace Danforth, senior corporate counsel. His tone was breathless, dripping with frantic, forced warmth. "Calvin, thank goodness I reached you. Look, there has been a massive misunderstanding on our end. A terrible administrative breakdown. There is no breakdown, Horace, I replied smoothly, sitting in my favorite armchair on my back porch. Jared Cole explicitly informed me that my 24 years of service and my accrued pension fund were acceptable losses. I merely accepted his legal assessment and activated my contract remedies. Calvin, please, Horace pleaded, his voice trembling. We want to make this right immediately. The chief executive officer and the board have authorized me to offer you a full reinstatement of your pension benefits, plus a lump sum cash settlement of $1,500,000, along with 500,000 phantom stock options in the merged entity. All we need is for you to sign a full release of the Article 9 security lien tonight. I took a slow, deliberate sip of iced tea, watching the evening shadows lengthen across my backyard grass. Horace, I said quietly, $1,500,000 does not even cover the interest penalties accumulated under paragraph 6 of the covenant. Furthermore, you listed those 18 core patents as unencumbered assets in your federal S-4 filings with the Securities and Exchange Commission. You committed material fraud by omission to induce Nordic Health AG into a $4 billion transaction. We can fix the filings. Horace stammered, panic surging in his voice. We can amend the disclosures. Name your number, Calvin. 2 million? 3 million? What do you want? What I want, Horace, I said, my voice as cold and firm as carved granite, is for your executive team to learn that loyalty is not a disposable commodity, and legal obligations are not suggestions. The cure window expires at 9 o'clock on Wednesday morning. My attorney will not accept anything less than full collateral enforcement. Calvin, wait! Horace screamed into the phone, but I pressed the end button and set the phone face down on the small wicker table beside me. The next morning, Tuesday, Wade Miller filed an expedited motion for emergency asset repossession and enforcement of security interest in federal district court. Attached to the filing were certified affidavits from independent valuation experts, confirming that Omnipulse Dynamics had defaulted on its senior debt obligations, as well as evidence of fraudulent S-4 representations. At 2 o'clock that afternoon, Federal District Judge Preston Vance reviewed the emergency filing in his chambers. Judge Vance, a veteran jurist known for his zero-tolerance approach to corporate fraud, examined my original 2004 covenant. He looked at Wade Miller and asked a single question: has the debtor tendered full cure funds into the court registry? No, Your Honor, Wade replied. They offered partial settlement figures while continuing to market the encumbered collateral to a foreign buyer. Judge Vance picked up his pen and signed the order without hesitation. Motion granted, the judge declared sternly. Issued an immediate asset repossession warrant. Federal marshals are authorized to assist the senior secured creditor in securing all primary collateral, including physical servers, digital repositories, and source code archives. Wade called me the moment he walked out of the courtroom. Calvin, he said, his voice ringing with triumph, we have the signed federal warrant. Tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock we execute the seizure. I stood on my porch, looking up at the clear blue sky. For 24 years I had watched arrogant executives cut corners, ignore compliance warnings, and treat dedicated employees as replaceable cogs. They believed their wealth and titles made them invincible. But tomorrow morning they were going to learn that the law does not bow to corporate hubris. At precisely 4 minutes past 10 on Wednesday morning, 3 unmarked black utility vans pulled up to the front glass entrance of Omnipulse Dynamics headquarters. Out stepped 8 federal marshals wearing navy blue tactical jackets with gold badges, accompanied by 4 court-appointed technical forensics specialists carrying heavy industrial storage cases and digital cloning equipment. Wade Miller and I walked right behind them as the lead federal marshal pushed open the heavy glass doors of the main lobby. The young receptionist stood up in shock, her mouth open as the marshal presented a certified copy of the federal asset repossession warrant. Federal enforcement, the marshal announced in a loud, commanding voice that echoed across the marble lobby. We are executing a judicial seizure order on all intellectual property assets associated with Patent Schedule A. All personnel are instructed to step away from their workstations immediately. Within 4 minutes, Internal corporate communications collapsed into total chaos. Emergency alerts flashed across employee computer screens as technical specialists entered the main server room on the second floor. They executed administrative override commands, severing Omnipulse's external network connections and shutting down public access to the proprietary AI diagnostic engine. Marshals walked directly into the executive suite on the top floor. Jared Cole was in the middle of a video conference with European investors from Nordic Health AG when the door flew open. Two marshals stepped inside, followed by Wade Miller and myself. "What is the meaning of this intrusion?" Jared screamed, jumping out of his chair, his face turning pale. "You cannot enter my office. I am the Vice President of Workforce Optimization." "Jared Cole," Wade Miller said calmly, stepping forward and placing a copy of the federal warrant on his glass desk. "Under order of the United States District Court, all authority over the 18 core patents listed under Patent Schedule A has been transferred to senior secured creditor Calvin Bradley. Your servers are being isolated, your source code repositories are locked, and your company is prohibited from utilizing any portion of the proprietary diagnostic schema." Jared stared at me, his eyes wide with utter shock and disbelief. "Calvin?" He stuttered, his voice cracking. You actually did this?" I looked at him calmly, my hands resting comfortably in the pockets of my trench coat. "You told me my pension was an acceptable loss, Jared," I said quietly. "I merely foreclosed on the collateral that backed your promise." By noon, news of the federal raid erupted across global financial media. CNBC aired live footage of federal specialists loading sealed silver server drives and master documentation crates into the back of the black vans parked outside Omnipulse headquarters. At 1:15 p.m., trading in Omnipulse Dynamics stock was halted on the Nasdaq Stock Exchange after the share price plummeted 34% in less than 90 minutes. At 2:45 p.m., Nordic Health AG issued an emergency global press release. In light of active federal asset, repossession actions and material misrepresentations regarding intellectual property encumbrances, Nordic Health AG hereby terminates all merger discussions with Omnipulse Dynamics Incorporated effective immediately. The $4 billion merger was dead. By late afternoon, the board of directors held an emergency session and voted unanimously to terminate Chief Executive Officer, General Counsel Horace Danforth, and Vice President Jared Cole for gross breach of fiduciary duty and catastrophic failure of risk management. Shareholder derivative lawsuits were filed within hours, seeking hundreds of millions of dollars in damages against the executive team personally. 3 days later, Omnipulse Dynamics entered into formal court-supervised restructuring negotiations. To prevent complete liquidation, the remaining board members agreed to transfer full legal title of the 18 core patents into an independent licensing trust, controlled by my retirement fund, while also paying $5,200,000 in back pension guarantees, statutory damages, and legal fees. Today, I sit on the back porch of my suburban home, enjoying the quiet morning breeze as the sun rises over the treetops. My silver Parker pen rests on the table next to a warm cup of coffee and a fresh copy of the Wall Street Journal, featuring a front-page analysis of the historic IP repossession case. Corporate executives often believe that quiet compliance officers are weak, that years of faithful service make an employee vulnerable, and that contract terms can be ignored whenever convenience demands it. But they forget that quiet men build strong foundations, and ironclad legal covenants outlast corporate arrogance every single time. My pension was never an acceptable loss. It was the key that unlocked their entire empire.